So Ubisoft decided to go for something different with Splinter Cell Double Agent this time. This is the 4th game in the series. They were looking to add a different kind of texture to it, some more complications. And what they've done is, with Double Agent, they've created a game that doesn't necessarily go into the black or the white. It sort of fiddles around in the middle. It gets murky, it's complex, and it's deep. And it's created a harder edge game with thick with ethical questions and hard choices that must be made. So in approaching this next generation game, what they've done is they've added a storyline. They've made a storyline that's not just text on computer files. You're a mole in the terrorist group, and you've got to figure out what these guys are doing and stop them from doing it. But at the same time, you're working for them. You're working against them. You're working with the NSA as well. So the game actually balances these two out, and it manifests in 2 meters, trust meters that show up all the time in the game. So you're constantly having to balance between them. This adds an interest because there are characters and people's lives at stake, and the decisions you make eventually have an effect on the outcome of the game in the end. There are actually 3 endings, and the way you play the game decides those endings. The tension between the forces creates more involvement in the player, so you actually care about the story this time. And one of the other good things about it is that, it's a stealth game, so how good is the AI? And the AI has sharpened up in a number of ways. First of all, there are a lot more characters on screen. So where there was 1 or 2 before in Chaos Theory, there are 5, 6, 8 characters on screen, and they're all, while you're playing on normal mode, they're all looking for you, and any time that they see you, they're going to come out and shoot. And 2 or 3 shots is actually going to kill you. You can't take many more than that. Finally, in terms of the story, you've got sequences where you actually, they call them like cinematic decisions or theatrical sort of elements, where you have to make a choice. You're put into the interrogation room and the JBA, and you have to kill somebody or not kill them. And the decision you make affects the game. Later in the game, and it doesn't ruin it, so it's not a spoiler, you have to make a decision about a CIA agent. You either kill him or not kill him, and depending on what you do, you'll play a different level afterward. So keep an eye out for these decisions because they'll affect the game. Graphically, the game looks great. You've got a whole lot of animations. You see, the bump mapping and the normal mapping and all this great HDR and bloom lighting affecting everything. Ubisoft's color palette's really fantastic, and the texture work and everything else is really good as well. The multiplayer in the game has changed, or the online game rather has changed. There's multiplayer and there's co-op. This time, Ubisoft really went for a multiplayer game, so you can play up to 3-on-3. You can add bots if you don't have 6 people there, and it's Mercs versus Spies. It's a fun game. It's more accessible than it was before. The hardcore gamers who love Chaos Theory are going to probably have a problem with this game because it's just not as technical. It's a little easier to get into, and there's not as much memorization. Of course, you will have to learn the maps. You will have to team up with your buddies. You will have to use the headsets. But I liked it. I thought it was a lot of fun, and I think it has legs. On the negative side, as with all stealth games, you've got a trial and error gameplay to the bone. You'll have to save a lot. You're going to have to replay everything. So if you like stealth games, you're familiar with this. But if you approach this game from an action gamer's perspective, you're going to pull your hair out. In normal mode, you never really lose too much trust from either side, so you can kind of screw up a bunch of times and still gain that trust back. And so there's not as much hardcore balance there. I think in hard mode, you'll really find you'll lose a lot of trust by doing things that anger or piss off the JBA or the NSA. The game's a little framey at times. It just hangs around 30. It takes a long time to load up. It's really slow load times. And the game kind of starts off slowly. Like the first 2 levels could be better. They could be more enticing. I think as the game goes along, it gets better and better. In the end, Splinter Cell Double Agent is a leap for the series and a change for the series. There are harder decisions to make. There are actually decisions to make. There's a storyline. The multiplayer is more accessible. And you've got a game that crosses into a different territory, which I think really makes it a much more interesting game. And I think it does. It plays off these balancing agencies really well. It gets this character, gets you involved more in the storyline and in the game itself, and I think that's what people really want. They want to have a really interesting, engaging story, and Ubisoft's done that with Splinter Cell Double Agent.